Hello and welcome back to Remake Hot Take, the podcast where we play studio executives pitching remake ideas of our favorite and new media. I'm Marriya Schwarz.
And I'm Brooke Rees, and this week we are doing Netflix's new show, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which is based on the 2019 novel by Holly Jackson, and it was released at the start of this month, so just a couple weeks ago, if you're watching in August of 2024.
Wow, you did
Um,
research.
I just pulled up the Wikipedia page because usually I fumble around a little bit, but I know that there were some people in the book talk sphere, which I now consider myself a book talk girly after getting back into reading since starting the ACOTAR series. But some book talk girlies I saw were really excited about this Netflix adaptation, TV adaptation, and really enjoyed the book. That being said, I have not read this book.
Mhm.
Have you read the book, or what was your prior experience to the series?
So my prior experience was I saw a TikTok video where they said this show is coming out and everyone said, the big book talk girlies are I don't know, happy and or alert or whatever and I said wow I should watch that and then what happened was I did.
Wow, that was like a beautiful synopsis.
Yeah, they're actually getting Emma Myers to play me in the movie version.
Of how you discovered A Good Girl's Guide to
Hmm.
Murder. Yeah, they're
Hmm.
they're like, on the surface, it doesn't seem like there's a lot to work with this story, but Emma Myers, you can take this role and you can transform it.
Exactly.
But yes, similar experience, had not read the novel, but saw the hype online. And I think nowadays, honestly, like my former roommate now just, she's taken a back seat and is just a next door neighbor now. But my friend and I like usually watch stuff together in the evening, and I feel like we have so many shows going on right now, like we have too many series, and sometimes it's hard to like stick with the episodes of each one, especially like Vampire Diaries. We're in a tough place with it right now. The writing in season 6, I feel like this is definitely during like a writer strike or something. Like it's horrible.
Mm.
So I feel like we really are drawn to either like new Netflix series that have limited amounts of release, of episodes released, or ones that are like limited TV series that like we know it's done after like the 6 to 8 episodes. So that's why I
Mm.
was drawn to it as well. I was like, this looks like it's gonna be like an easy, succinct watch.
Yeah.
But
I do feel bad because that's like kind of what's killing Hollywood, but I do agree that it is manageable.
yeah,
You know, there's
no,
the her whole like survive till 25 or whatever. And it like part of it is like, like producers and writers are like they're finally staffed on something, but then it's like 8 episodes, and then they're like,
mm-hmm.
well,
Yeah,
shit.
I guess we can talk about like that aspect of like the streaming model as well, because it's not very good for like viewership experience either. Other than like the select instance where I like a limited series because it's easily digestible and I feel like I have the chaos of my life going on. But for ones that are like I'm dedicated, a part of the fan base, like Stranger Things is the one that comes to mind. Everyone on Twitter has been making fun of Stranger Things. We've now had a summer without Stranger Things, and they're talking about, oh, like maybe 2025, like maybe 2026, and people are like, how are these fan bases even still like being strung along? Because it's been like 10, 15 years before we get like the start and end of the series, especially when we have like child actors too. I'm like, they don't look like kids anymore. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's kind of an double-edged sword. There are some benefits to it, but definitely from like a viewership experience, and then like you're saying, from a staff production experience too, not the best model, but that's what we've found ourselves in, I
Well,
guess.
I feel like they're only doing that 8 episode model probably because it's cheaper and maybe because people don't have the attention span or something to like necessarily get through a whole thing. I mean, like, I can't really think of like any scripted show that's like, that like 20 to like 23 episode kind of model that we used to have with like The Office and stuff like
Hmm.
that. I just feel like it doesn't I think it's like the even I guess that's part of also like the weekly release kind of model versus
Hmm.
like releasing. So I think all of these episodes came out at once, and it's like they're not going to drop like 23 episodes worth of content
Hmm.
necessarily all at once. But yeah, what was your experience watching this?
Hmm. Yeah, I think what my overall impression was that it was like a fun, easy watch. That being said, there like when I was in the thick of it watching it, it's now been a couple weeks since I finished the last episode. One, having been a couple weeks, I will say that some aspects of this show were like kind of easily forgettable. I
Hmm.
was like, what exactly did I watch? Like I don't know if it made as much of like a lasting impression on me. I wasn't like, oh my God, this was the best thing I've ever seen. But two, when I was watching it, there were like some plot points that I was like fairly confused by. And I think my synopsis of my viewing experience was like, this is a deeply British show and concept. And everything that
Except
the
Emma Myers.
yeah, but everything that like the plot hinges on are things that in America I feel like she would have died like so quick. Like every time that I was watching it, I was like, why are these sweet little British people talking to Pip? Like what like what like where is their like Fifth Amendment rights? I was like, they are just like perjuring themselves on the stand here. Like you are like willingly and eagerly telling this random teenager like all of the intimate details of your life and also not seemingly like aware of any of the consequences of what might be coming from this. So like obviously like she's not a cop. Like, she's just like some nerdy kid doing like her like senior year thesis is what it seems like the project
Hmm.
is that she's doing. And so like of course she doesn't have like the credibility or like the threat that someone from like law force would present, but still like do you know how easy it is just to like shut the fuck up and like not spill your secrets to this like little kid? um and what else has Emma Myers been in? Because you keep saying Emma Myers. I don't know who Emma Myers is. Like, is
She's
she?
Pip.
Yeah, the main character, but I don't know her in anything else. What
She
else is
was
she
really big
in?
in Wednesday.
Oh, I haven't seen Wednesday.
Well, I feel like Emma Myers is she's getting like, Stranger Things came out and everyone like was obsessed with Millie Bobby Brown's performance.
Hmm.
And so they like took that and they're like, we're gonna put her in everything.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like they're kind of doing that with Emma Myers as well because she was kind of like really a standout of Wednesday. She was like the peppy best friend werewolf who's like, I don't know if you've seen the like howdy roomie thing. That's her. Um, and I think in this instance, I think like I've seen her in Wednesday and I thought she was good in Wednesday in that kind of like bubbly, over the top kind of role. And I thought
Hmm.
she was good in The Family Switch. Um, but I think in this role, it just like they kind of did her really dirty. Because she is the only person who is not British in the cast, and you can so tell. And I read online that they only gave her like 2 weeks or something to practice with the accent, and like you can really, really tell because it's like everyone else, like she's just trying to like she's like trying to stay afloat with like I don't know, but everyone else is like from like London proper, so they all have like the kind of regional dialect.
Hmm.
And I just feel like they just kind of forced her, and like maybe if she had more preparation or something like that, but they just kind of forced her into a role that wasn't exactly right for her. I do think what's ironic is I feel like this was a Millie Bobby Brown role.
That's so true. They could not get Millie because she was getting married like multiple times to to the like Bon Jovi kid. Um yeah, you know what? Oddly enough, I feel like I sometimes pick up on like accent like differences in films and sometimes don't. I like did not pick up on that at all. Maybe like
Really?
yeah, it didn't like take me out at all. I did think that she was a good actress and like she was pretty endearing. I think like the overwhelming like Britishness of like the plot logic maybe just like hid
Mm.
her her like patchy accent performance for me. But yeah, I thought she was a good actress. I thought she was um like creating like a very like endearing person, but she was also like this isn't like a testament to her acting, but the character of Pip was also like annoying as shit at times. Like she was like a bad friend at
Yeah.
times,
Like
and
leaving her friends at the party just
like
randomly.
leaving her friends at the party, but then her friends were apologizing to her. And I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like this is on her. Like, we stick together, but
It was very much, I think the show didn't pretend for a second that Pip wasn't the main character and everything was centered around Pip.
mm-hmm,
Um, but it like tried to add in these friends and this ensemble cast
mm-hmm.
without like fleshing them out at all. Like
Yeah.
we got to know Kara a bit, we got to know Ravi a bit. I couldn't tell you the name of that girl who wants
Mm-mm.
to go to arts or film school or art school or whatever it is.
No, I actually genuinely forgot that they had other friends other
I
than
know.
Kara and Ravi until like they brought him back in like the the second to last and last episode. I was like, oh shit. I was like, I forgot about those guys that were introduced in the beginning. I'm not sure that her two male friends had more than like one and a half lines apiece.
Right?
And then the one artsy like wants to drink friend. But yeah, I thought that let's like dive into it a little bit. I thought that um it was good, you know, it's giving like Nancy Drew vibes, but
Mm.
again, I was just so hung up on the logic of her. Like I understand she wanted to you know, do this as her thesis. I don't fault her for that. I like a quirky kind of um you know, character that's really into like school and very studious. Like I identify like with that as someone that was very into studying and like performing well in high school. And I do kind of relate to her as well because there was like in an AP bio class we were assigned like some sort of end of year like project that we had to do, and you had like a partner and it could be like anything that you wanted to come up with. So I said to like my best friend who is the former roommate, same person, I said to Megan, I was like, what if we like cured cancer? Like in full seriousness. I
Oh,
was like,
someone just did.
did they?
I
As an
was when I
AP
was
bio
driving,
project?
when I was driving to work this morning, this guy was just announced, I think as like it was like Time Magazine Kid of the Year.
Mm,
He's 15 and he goes to a high school in my county where I grew up, and he invented um a soap that like helps
mhm.
cure skin cancer.
Yeah, I actually saw people dragging that kid on
Oh my
Twitter
God.
because I saw this like maybe a week ago. But I think they were talking about basically like how those like Time Kid of the Year things are not like equally like distributed, and that the
Hmm.
kid basically took what like already exists in I think like different forms or
Oh
something
no.
and
Okay.
just made it into like a soap. Like they were saying that his idea like wasn't that revolutionary, but who knows?
Okay, well, 97.1 Wash FM was very congratulatory this
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah, let's
Um,
not shit on the kid because I know nothing other than the fact that like several Twitter users were up in arms about it, but that means very little. Twitter people get mad about a lot of things. So who knows? He's either a genius, but you know, I guess he, you know, beat me to the punch because like in genuine earnest seriousness, I thought that maybe there was a part of my like delusional brain that I was like, what if I just like gave it a go? Like, what if I just gave it a shot? Like, Megan, you and me, we can like cure cancer. We didn't end up doing that because Megan, she isn't a believer. She's not an optimist. And she said,
Mm.
we're not going to be able to do that. But now let me send her
So
the
what
Soap
did you
Kid
cure?
story. We did not cure anything. We were very into the Emily Deschanel, Zoe Deschanel's sister, uh TV show Bones, about a forensic anthropologist. And there's an episode of Bones where they go to a real place. It's called the Body Farm. And the Body Farm is a place, I can't remember what state it is, but it's in the US, where they get bodies that are donated to science and they have them decompose in different environments. And they do this to like study like what it looks like, so that if you were to come across like remains that had like similar conditions, you would kind of be able to like work backwards and deduce kind of like time of death and other like environmental factors. So we wanted to recreate that. We couldn't, have any bodies donated to us. So we took hot dogs and we just placed hot dogs around my AP bio room for a solid like 6 week time period. And we had one submerged in water, one just sitting out there like under like a heat lamp, like a lizard grow lamp, one like buried under dirt, and we studied the stages of decomposition of the hot dog. What conclusions were drawn? I don't know. See, this is why we should have cured cancer instead. But
Well,
all that to say, we had a trifold poster at the end. I cut it in the shape of a hot dog so that the one folds of the trifold were the bun and the hot dog was underneath. Bam, we got hot dogged. And we presented our findings. But
well,
um
I studied the stigma that comic books are only for men and that effect on women readers. And then I raised donations of clothing and other items for a women's shelter. But I'm so glad you had fun.
well, hey, I'm contributing
What happened to the hot
to
dogs after?
I'm contributing to the hot dog foul play
You're so
Discord.
right. Yeah.
Like, I raised bun
The
money.
academic conversation.
Yeah. Mine's much more high level, Marriya. I'm glad that you were able to help people. But no, it was like really awful for everyone because the smell of decaying food was in our AP bio classroom for many weeks. And shout out to Mr. Patton, who I think was just made principal of my high school or something, or of
Wow.
one of the schools in our school districts. He was a real one. He let Megan and I do that, and he did not ask any questions. And I loved him for that. But
Imagine that ended up curing cancer.
see, if we could have just tied it back to my original my original quest. But all that to say, I'm an ambitious gal myself. Me and Pip, like if we were in school together and she said that she wanted to solve a murder, I would have been like, absolutely, girl. Like for her
If she
thesis,
asked Megan, no.
Megan is a downer. But no, Megan and I watched this series together, and we were saying that like if we had like a local murder, we probably also would have gone that route, but we would have
Mm.
like used the hot dogs to then try
Mm.
to solve the murder. So Pip and I, we were on the same wavelengths.
Well,
But
I think what kind of like pissed me off a little bit about this is like I was comparing it and I've seen a lot of comparisons to Veronica Mars, which I love Veronica Mars and it's also like, kind of nosy teen girl uh shoves herself into places where she shouldn't be and gets into
mhm,
trouble and solves things by like doing things not legally. Um but with Veronica Mars, she had, the basis that she works in her dad's like private detective agency. And so she had these skills. With with Pip, I'm like, what skills does she bring to
mhm.
the table except for like research? Like I don't even see any like background in journalism or anything like that. They're like, oh, we have this unsolvable case. Well, let's get the girl who studies Gothic literature. Like it just
Yeah.
didn't like it felt a little bit like everything kind of came a little bit easier, like you were saying, with like where it's like everyone was talking to her. And then I was also like, it felt like a show where there wasn't really any consequences. You know, like
Hmm.
in the first scene that we see in episode one, it's like her friends are trying to buy alcohol and she is the decoy or whatever. And then they end up getting caught, but they just like kind of like walk away. Like there's no
Hmm.
consequences of that or that they tried to do that. And like when they break and enter into the Bell's house, and then they're like, "Oh my God, thank God we got away." But it's like everyone saw you, everyone saw your license plate, but there are
Hmm.
no like repercussions. I'm like to the point where I'm like, do they have laws in England?
This
Have
is
they
what
gotten laws?
this is what I was saying. Like, I was so perplexed that I was like, this just must be like it must be a vast cultural difference of not being in like a police state. Like, not that America's like a police state, but
Well, I guess they
um
like just have
kind
like
of.
batons,
Yeah,
right? Do they even?
no,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. I was like, this is one of the biggest differences of like not having easy access to guns. Because if Miss Pip even like let's forget breaking and entering. I feel like nowadays in America, even if you just walk up to someone's door and go a knocking, it's like like
Mm.
you're going to get like murdered. And this is not go America. This is like a criticism of America. But I was like, I truly there were no consequences for her. I was baffled that she solved anything. Pip is an intelligent character, but she is a very much, book intelligent character.
Mhm.
Quite literally with her love of literature, but also she just does not have any street smarts. But like for the most part, it works out with her. Like, yeah, she like almost gets kidnapped by her best friend's dad, like Elliot Ward. But let me focus on him for a second. What kind of villain is he? He is like the nicest, most proper villain. There was like a threat of being held captive that was hardly a threat at all. We're
Mm.
in like the captivity for about 5 minutes. Like
Just a
her
conversation, yeah.
yeah, her sense of stranger danger. I was like, everyone is either like very much like medicated or like this is just how British people talk to each other because in America, like if my best friend's dad, had me trapped in a house, it wouldn't be like, "Oh, Pip, what are you doing here?" And then she's
Mhm.
like, "Well, actually, I think you're a murderer." And he's like, "Yeah, I am." And he's like,
Let's talk
"Well,
about that.
yeah."
Let's
And he's like
unpack that for a second.
he's like
Very teacher, though.
yeah, he's doing the Socratic method of, oh, how do you think that I killed her? But
hmm
like everything was just like, let me like sit down with a cup of tea and spill my secrets to
Well,
this
that's
little
the whole thing.
girl.
It's like there are so few consequences, and it's like, I mean, at least that, like, I mean, not at least, because I know you really didn't like it, and I knew that you wouldn't like it. But when like the dog died, I was like, at least like it's like a threat that's like followed through. Everything else, I was like, what are they gonna do? Like make her tea decaf? Like it just felt like there
It
was
was
nothing. She just kept getting these threats and like nothing was happening.
mm-hmm.
And I think in the book, it's not even um Becca is Andy's the one who dies and Becca's the
Yeah.
sister, right? So it's
Mm-hmm.
not even Becca who kills the dog, it's like the dad.
Okay.
Because he thinks that it's Becca's dog and that she's like growing up or whatever. And so he kills the dog. But I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, let me get into some more like points here that were confusing to me. So, also just side note, Emma Myers, I think, not having seen her in anything other than Family Switch, looks very young for her
Hmm.
age. Like,
Okay. And she
how,
plays so young. And I think
yeah.
that's what really worked for her as Wednesday. That was my point, is that like bubbly, really over the top, that worked.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because she does this thing where she acts with her mouth. Like she does this kind of thing a lot. And then but it plays very young and immature. And I think that's a criticism that a lot of people had in this show is that like she played so young that she looked more 14 than like 17, which also
No,
added to like issues with like her relationship with Ravi because
yeah.
it was like a girl and babysitter.
No, like so much so. I actually don't know how old Emma Myers is. I'm gonna guess like young 20s or something. But genuinely, when the show started, I thought that she was playing like a 12-year-old. Like she looked even younger than 14. Like I would say 12 to 13, like young adolescent. And Ravi was like they said that he went off to college, but then came back and he's like the younger brother. But I was like, okay, so he's like maybe like 20, like I'm trying to estimate their ages. And then I had to Google what the age of consent was in
Yeah.
England, the age of sexual consent, because I was like, okay, clearly these two are gonna fuck. I was like, clearly they're getting together, but I was like, this feels very inappropriate.
Mhm.
And apparently the age of like consent in England for sexual consent is 16, which in America it's 18. So they were in the clear, even if he was if she was 17 and he was like 21 or whatever. He's not going to jail for that. So, have at it, Ravi and Pip. Which I did really like Ravi.
Mhm.
It felt like there was like such a tone of like everyone is so nice and everyone is so proper. And I could tell right away that the dad was like up to no good. Like he was giving subtle
I
vibes.
know. I
I
saw that coming so
yeah,
much.
I saw that coming, but then Ravi also seemed like too good to be true. I thought there
Oh
was
no,
gonna
I loved Ravi. Okay, I support Indians. As an Indian woman, I
no,
have to.
I loved Ravi too. He was like such a sweetheart, but it was something where like everyone was too nice in this movie.
Mm.
Even our villains were like so proper and so polite that I thought there was gonna be like a second like double switch up and that they caused the conflict with Ravi then being like peace out bitch, like I'm going now, you have fun on your own getting drugged by Becca, and then of course he comes back to save her. But I thought there was maybe gonna be like an additional twist of him having something to do with his brother's death or disappearance. But yeah, so I did like Ravi. I do, like Pip, even though I think that she makes like just so like naive decisions that
Mhm.
if this were an American series would get her into like much worse circumstances.
Yeah. I think
Um,
um this series was basically I had watched Broadchurch. I don't know if you've seen Broadchurch with David Tennant and oh, what's her name? She played in the is it Olivia Colman played the Queen Elizabeth in The
yeah.
Crown. Um, and that basically has like the same exact kind of twist ending. And so I really, really saw it coming. So yeah, I don't know. That was probably my own kind of bias there is that like they were forcing, I was like, oh, we have Pip's parents because Pip is the main character. Are we just focusing on this one dad unless
Mm-hmm.
he's important? And so I feel
Yeah.
like in that way they kind of made it pretty obvious. Especially like there was that one scene where like we go into the flashback of like Pip, don't tell anyone where I've been. And then it's like the teacher's classroom and it's like we never really talked about the fact that it's his classroom that she went in. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. And also side note, like it's like the like conflict in this series is like so simplified and so non-existent,
Hmm.
and yet the plot itself is a little bit like convoluted, and I thought
Hmm.
that the like the delivery of some of these twists and turns was not as exciting nor understandable as it should be. Because we like talk about Andy a lot. Obviously she's our main character, the missing girl, but I feel like we still don't really like know her as like a character. And I was
Yeah.
very confused by her motivation. So she has been with like several older men now. There was like the cop, And then obviously the twist at the end, she was briefly with Kara's dad, Elliot, the teacher, and then she was also with Ravi, and then they hint at the fact that her like dad was super strict. But I'm still not understanding like the crux of what her motivation was to become a drug dealer. Like I guess she what needed money to fund like running away with Ravi.
Yeah, I think that was it.
But then B, she like says that she's gonna run away with Robbie because her dad discovered that she was a drug dealer. So it like nothing that they were doing
Mm.
seemed to be motivated. And then the
I
like
think Yeah, and I think that was kind of the issue. I think in the book, apparently, it's much more, we have that whole thing about like the dad is really the one that kills. Is it Barney or is it I don't know. For some reason I keep thinking it's Barnaby, and it's definitely not whatever the dog's name is.
I think it's Barney.
Barney. But so the dad in the book kills Barney, and which is such like a violent action, but we don't have that in the show, and so I feel
Mhm.
like we don't entirely like see what Andy is running from.
Mhm.
And I feel like that definitely needed to be more developed. And I think that was like one of the core issues is like there was that time when like Becca is like, I know what you're doing. I just don't understand like why. Like everyone always thinks that they're doing it for the dead person, but it's really about themselves. Um, and Pip is like, oh my God, yeah, you're right. And then she's like, even though it's for myself, I'm gonna do it. And so then it's just like we kind of take that as like a criticism, and then we're like, nah. And we don't pivot at all. So it's like I also kept kind of going back and forth on like, is Pip selfish? I guess to like be kind of stirring things up. I mean, the way that it's resolved, I guess, is like good for people involved that now
Mhm.
everyone has closure. But, and I guess like it's good for like Naomi. I really liked that like freeing sense for her. Um, but it was like this is the Pip show.
Mhm.
And I think in the way that they didn't really develop any other characters, they really, really um kind of leaned into that idea that this is for her.
Mhm. Yeah. And again, I'm like, I understand that she, internally has this guilt of she feels like maybe she contributed to Andy's death by showed Sal that she was in the classroom. But aside like aside from being in the same town, like it's unclear like why this has affected her so much
Hmm.
and why she wants to clear Sal's name. Like it says that, she knew him and she knew that
He was always nice to me. And
like
it's
what
like,
does that
okay,
mean?
how and
Like,
when?
yeah, like
Justin, hey
was he
Pip,
your
could you tell
babysitter?
us?
Like you like barely talked to him like in the flashback. He was like 15 years older than you. Like I'm so confused.
Yeah. And I
But
think I think like it would have been because I did like that racial element of like, the white girl that died and the brown boy that everyone villainized and like the white girl that they made shrines to and all of that kind of stuff. And so I would have like, I mean, we have like a little bit of the celebration, like once it's, kind of resolved, but I feel like there's not enough um kind of time with like Robbie's family and like
mhm,
that experience. Like it's once again, it's like it just becomes like the Pip show.
mhm,
Um and it's like even in maybe okay, so like even in his own like this is like the biggest moment for him. Um to like finally be free of this town and be free of like what everyone's thinking about his family. And even in that moment, it feels like he's the Watson, that he's the secondary character,
mhm.
which I didn't really love.
Yeah. I I didn't mind it because I think that like I don't know, like he was wrong to like not listen to his friend's intuition when he
Hmm.
had like been in it like so far and it did feel like he was kind of like abandoning the project before the thesis was written. Um but you're right, it like it was his like first moment of freedom and feeling like he was finally okay, to like his parents were going to be okay on their own. But like I haven't even like gotten into my criticisms of the like thematic and subtle elements of this film, because I'm so hung up on like just the like the facts of like what actually like occurred, because then we have a moment where um we have this big climax of it being revealed that it's Naomi and Kara's dad that is potentially the murderer. But then it's like, no, I didn't actually murder her. We got into an argument, she hit her head really bad, and then she disappeared. But also I like kidnapped this
I
this
know.
woman that came up to
Dad's all
me.
over the place.
Like that's not addressed. Like there was just like, what kind of show is this meant to be? Because there was so much potential for it to,
And I mean,
blur.
I guess I see some of like the start of that where it's like, you know, in one of the first scenes at Kara's house, they're like, "Where are the snacks?" Like
Hmm.
they saw them unpacked, but I don't see where they went. And it's like, oh, they probably went to like that random lady, or like, why are you tutoring all the time and you're working
Hmm.
overtime, but we never have any more money? Um, so I did see how they kind of started to plot that out, but I don't
Hmm.
know.
No, no, no,
Dad went wild.
no. I fully got those hints. I
Hmm.
fully understood that. It was so totally lacking in motivation. Like they have
Mm,
shown me nothing to suggest that this man is in any way unhinged, evil, has like
yeah.
malintent. They just like fully did not lean into like the scary aspect of this. Like not once was I ever like creeped out or scared at all. And then to show him like having fully like kidnapped another girl, it's like, oh, he's like deeply disturbed, and he
Hmm.
has like a bit of a moment like with his monologue, but the delivery of the monologue again is like so calm, so cool, and like collected. I have like no sense of urgency from Pip, no sense of like pending doom. And then we show this like other woman, and it feels like they had like so much potential to really lean into those scarier aspects, and they totally did not do that. But I think it was to the detriment of the overall show, because when you have like characters that are doing these things, but they're not like displaying that through any of the mood of the show, it feels like, well, what's going on here? It's very unmotivated. And so we
Yeah.
have that climax, and then we have what I'm sure like maybe in the book presents as a much like juicier twist, that then Becca, Andy's sister, ends up being the true murderer, like if we can call her that. In the US she'd probably be charged not with like what is it, like first degree murder or whatever. It was an accident, but then she covered it up and like
Hmm.
tampered with the body and everything. So we have that big twist, and then it's like, okay, then we kind of have Becca being sinister as well. But like, but what about Becca would ever logically lead to, yes, she, got into this argument with her sister. Her sister hit her head after already having a head injury, which what kind of person like walks into their sister, doesn't see like the gaping, like bloodied hole, like dripping down her back, and just like carries on the carries on the conversations normal. Like we have been shown through like her sister's actions that she has this like she has this anger towards her for selling the drugs that ended up unfortunately in her rape by that other like weird fucking character. What's his name? Like Max,
Max?
or
Yeah.
yeah, that other weird guy who he's strange.
Yeah.
Like at least he's giving somewhat sinister, like he's
Hmm.
delivering on that. So we understand that she has this anger towards her sister, but it is shown very much as like an in the moment shoving, like not intentional, this is not premeditated, that she has now panicked and hidden the body. But what about this, like these characters that seem to be like very intelligent, very organized, have like resources, have access to money, like nothing in it is showing me that she would then go to the extreme of drugging and
I
kidnapping
know.
Pip and bringing her to dump her. Like you don't go from like accidental
Like,
murder
just don't
and
talk
hiding
to
the
her.
body. Yeah, like it's so strange. And we see that she's like murdered the dog, so we know that she has it in her. But again, like I'm not feeling any of the associated like internal like creepiness or sense of danger
Mhm.
that that is associated with these scenes. And so for me it just leads to a lot of like why did they do this? Like nothing makes sense. You like willfully talked to Pip, you gave her all of this information, but then also sent her threats. Like I don't know, it's like two big twists that I feel like could have played out in ways that were like really good, but for me they just like ultimately fell flat.
Yeah, I think
um
I think it's like, we've described it as being like an easy watch or a casual watch, which I think it was, but I don't think this genre is supposed to be that. Like I never felt like I was like rushed to go to like the next episode. And like maybe that was just like it's like more of like a teen thing than like it's not Girl on the Train, but it's
mhm.
like kind of like the kids pop version. But it
Yeah.
just didn't it was so slow in the first like 6 episodes and then really fast in the last few.
Mhm. And then there were like plot points that like never reconnected.
Mhm.
Like we had those interviews with like Andy's friends, and like the one tennis player, like her brother ends up being, like a part of the plot. And then we have this like B plot of showing Naomi, who is Kara's sister, who like I think earlier you said like, you were like felt relieved for Naomi that she had some like closure there. I don't like Naomi. She seems like a very bad person. And she has made so many decisions. While she's not the worst person in her friend group, she's still like very bad. Like
Mm.
she obviously they got into the like the precipitating moment for like all of this drama was um getting into a hit and run that she was involved in. She was not the driver, but she did not report the hit and run, and she does have the pressures from all of her other friends in this group, and I'm sure it's like a tough position to be in, being like pressured by your friend group and kind of being afraid of them. But she still like continued to hang out with that friend group like time and time again, knowing that like some of them were really bad people. And then like the ultimate like betrayal of then being blackmailed and being told that she had to lie to police. But again, she did it at the expense of like the police are now involved. She could have been protected. She could have made a deal. She could have done what was right. And she again chose to
But
not
I
do
mean, she was
that.
like a child, and I think she's the only one from the friend group that has repercussions where it's like you can tell that she's like not doing well versus
Mm-hmm.
like Max. And I think what I really liked about the show was like the theme of like siblings. We have a lot of different siblings in this. We have you know, Ravi and Sal and that kind of relationship of like wishing that, we knew what was going on and kind of bearing the the hardship of like the one that survived kind of thing. And then, we have Pip and her brother, that, is very kind of like a protective relationship. But then there's also a kind of a similar relationship with Kara and Naomi, but in a way that it's like, Pip is protective over her younger brother and Kara is protective over her older sister. In a way that is very similar, but it's very much like, she can't necessarily take care of herself or she can't
Mm-hmm.
um handle this kind of stress. And so I really liked that. And then we had the siblings be between Andy and Becca, where it's like you're kind of like, you know, it's less that you that I mean, part of it is definitely that this like terrible rape happened, but it like also was kind of caused and responsible and not really apologized for like by the person that you expect will never kind of betray you, even though it's like kind of was not obviously her intention necessarily, but so I thought all of those were kind of interesting. So I really liked I felt like Naomi and Kara, I liked their relationship. So I feel like that's why I liked Naomi as a character and the way that, at least she kind of came clean about it all. And especially like the way that, it's ultimately like her father is kind of a crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Ah.
Yeah, her dad is crazy. She has repercussions in the sense that she feels this immense guilt and her mental health is doing poorly. But you said that she was a child, but she's an adult now.
Yeah.
She's been an adult for many, many years and has had, multiple opportunities, even though she's, going up against someone like Max that has this like immense wealth and she herself could be hurt. I think it's like a moment where she has to be brave and choose to do the right thing, and unfortunately she doesn't do that. I think that she's doing the bare minimum, so I
Mm.
still do not like her. She is doing the bare minimum by telling her sister's best friend, who again is not qualified, is just investigating this. She doesn't think anything's going to come of it. She knows what the truth is and she keeps it from Pip until the very end, which also gets Pip into dangerous situations. She doesn't warn her about that. And then we're also, I'm sorry, but we're protecting Naomi because, like you said, Pip wants to protect her friend Kara, in this circle of protecting. But Pip was willing to not have the truth be told about Sal's innocence and how many lives that's ruined by
Mhm.
A, not killing the actual killer, and B, having this like racist propaganda and ruining Ravi and the rest of his family's lives just to protect Naomi's decision to not come forward with the truth. And she's going through a lot. Her dad's like maybe a serial killer or at least a kidnapper and rapist, but she doesn't get any consequences in the end. They don't tell anyone like what she was involved in. And she like obviously has a lot of issues with like drugs and alcohol too. So I really hope that she makes better decisions moving forward now that she's probably Kara's like legal guardian. But
Mhm.
my sympathy for her is limited. I understand that she's in a tough position, but I don't like the way that she reacted to any of those situations. Um, Especially given that like she had potential to be like a good person. Like you can see her
Mhm.
potential in being a good person in that she like is riddled with guilt. Whereas like Max, it's like, oh well, there's no hope for that guy. He's literally like a rapist, bad person, uses his money to get away with all of these things. There's like almost no hope of, redemption for that character, like nor should there be redemption for that character. But for Naomi, I'm like, I hold you to a higher standard, girl. Like, get with it. But yeah, the sibling dynamics that the series explores are really interesting. Um, I do like the relationship that Pip has with her younger sibling. It's like an interesting, like, my dad is dead kind of tale where
Mhm.
we actually see like a great like relationship with her stepdad and half
But then
brother.
that's like kind of like a random thing too,
Yeah,
like the random like cheating thing.
there were all these random like B plots where like I also like how she was like, oh, like dad was at a hotel when he was supposed to be visiting grandma. And she like automatically like she makes like assumptions that are not based in fact and logic like
Because
at
all she reads
all.
is gothic literature.
But yet she like is this like highly intelligent person, and she gets like so like unreasonably mad with both her mom and her dad about something that she didn't even like ask them like any follow-up questions. Like she is a horrible interviewer. That's like my
Mhm.
next thing. She like asks questions, which is why I thought she was playing a 12-year-old, because I'm like that everything would make sense if she was like 12 or under. I would be like, I understand why people are talking to this little child that they think has like 5 brain cells and they're really like
Mhm.
rumbling around in there trying to come up with a story. But she's not. She's supposed to be 17, very intelligent. And they still tell her all of their secrets. But like I think she's interviewing like I think one of Andy's best friends, and she's like, okay, question number one. Did you commit the murder? And then like she's interviewing like the drug dealer, and she's like, question number one. what kinds of drugs are you selling? Like, why would that be?
Mhm.
If the genie granted me 3 questions to ask this drug dealer, that would not be one of the questions. Like the kinds of drugs that he is selling is borderline like irrelevant. And then her like third question is like, so all of that being said, did you kill Andy? And the drug dealer's like, girl, what the fuck? Like, I liked the drug dealer. The drug dealer was like, you are dumb. You are gonna get hurt. And these are bad questions to ask. I was like, yeah, that's correct. Um, so yeah, any other uh thoughts about that? Oh, I was also
Yeah.
confused because I thought that they were all texting from the same anonymous number. Like I thought she was receiving all of the anonymous
Hmm.
texts from the same number. And I'll have to rewatch to see if they're coming in on different threads. But I thought they were all like on the one line. So then I was very confused with the twist that like it wasn't the dad that killed the dog. It was Becca. Because I was like, how are they both texting from Becca and the dad are texting from the same phone? But that must have just been like something that I missed. Or it is in fact like a major plot hole
Mhm.
that no one has discovered. But yeah, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I do admire that she, went this hard for a class assignment. A lot of my students, make up sources and stuff like that. So good to see.
You don't think she used like Chat GPT for her
Yeah,
final?
yeah, none of my students have solved any murders so far.
Should that be like your creative writing
Yeah,
assignment?
third year teaching and no murder solved. Um, and then I was really confused because they said that this was like 5 years after she had died, right? It was like
Yeah, I think she
so
was
I'm like,
murdered in 2019.
why are all of her friends still in the exact same place and living with their parents?
Mm-hmm.
I was really confused. Like I was like, oh, thank God everyone is stuck. I was like, oh, is this like a COVID era situation?
Well, there was one friend, it was like she was going through the friends in the friend group, and one of them, she was like, he's at college, he's in Italy or something.
But it's like 2 out of like 10 people.
Yeah, and it's like the 2 key characters that we
Hmm.
needed. We were like, oh, thank God, Max the rapist is still in town.
Yeah.
But I don't know, maybe that's like again, maybe this is a cultural thing. Maybe it's like more common in England. Like,
Yeah,
England, like the square footage is small. There's only so many places you can live there.
that's true.
They're not as spread out as America. But yeah, any final thoughts before we get into who's your daddy stats, if you have any?
I think that's it. Okay, so all I have is that the mom character, who's played by Anna Maxwell Martin, her ex-husband directed Notting Hill, and they separated, and then he died a year later.
Oh
So maybe that's
no.
season 2.
Okay. I've never seen Notting Hill.
Me either.
Okay, let's jump into the remakes. I don't have like really anything else. But as I said, I think that a key component here that I wasn't vibing with was potentially like the overall Britishness of this. But maybe if we have an international audience, British people, weigh in the chat. Is this like what England is like, or was this just like a poorly done piece? Like, do you guys like trust each other like so much that you like do you guys like open your doors? So I would just, remake it, set it in America. Like Emma Myers would feel right at home. We get rid of
Hmm.
the accent coach. She doesn't need it. We hire a bunch of other accent coaches for all the British actors. But
Or they have to
like,
just figure it out, just like she did.
yeah, they give her 2 weeks. Give everyone 2 weeks and see how they do. I feel like British people always do like an exaggerated Southern accent for
Mm.
America. So maybe we set this in the South, and something that like fills me with American pride is that this case would not get solved. We would have, the police interference that we kind of see. But I feel like American cops do police interference like better than that British cop did. Like it would be a full on like corrupt cop, conspiracy theory. It would take decades for this case to get solved. And then But would it be juicier though? Like
Mm,
would we be more on the side, is that what the issue is? Are we more on the side of the detective or amateur detective when their challenge is actually difficult? Because it did not seem hard. Like I feel
mm-hmm.
like she could have just gone up to Becca, and if they had sat down in a room with each other for more than 15 minutes, Becca would have been like, "Oh, you got me." Like she would have given in.
Mm-hmm.
But so we said it in the American South, potentially there, rampant police corruption. And I think that it's, a very either long and drawn out, or simply like Americans just keep their fucking mouths shut when random people are coming up to the door or like accosting us in like restaurants. We just don't talk to people like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's a much difficult challenge, but it's one that's like worth the wait. They have to come up with more creative ways of finding the clues and solving
Yeah.
them than just being
That one's going to
handed
be a
it.
20 episode season, so
Yeah,
we'll
no,
also
no,
save
no.
Hollywood.
Yeah, it's gonna save Hollywood, but it's still Netflix, so it's still gonna be 6 to 8 episodes. But we start out with Andy's murder, and it's much more graphic, much more
Mm-hmm.
violent in
Mm-hmm.
the first episode. And then I'm talking like 10 seasons later. Like basically
Yeah.
I want this to be like Pretty Little Liars,
Mm.
essentially. 10 years later, we're on like, season number 5, because they only do it every 2 years. And that's finally when we get it solved. So I think that's how the American version would work. And then a second remake is that this is actually something that like Megan came up with because we had ended on one of the cliffhanger episodes. And I said in the beginning of this pod that I was confused about like what Andy's motivations were to become a drug dealer, since it was such a critical part, but we know very little about Andy's actual character other than like kind of the assumption that her home life is bad, and kind of the assumption, again, never like explicitly like shown or said, that she was trying to run away with Sal, and that like that's why she started drug dealing. But something else, when they mentioned like Becca's rape, Megan said like, oh, like what if the reason that she became a drug dealer, this was like post her sister's sexual assault, and she became a drug dealer to try to find out who it was that sold
Mm.
the date rape drug. And I feel like that would have been such a better twist. Like obviously this
Mm-hmm.
is based off the book, where they're not going to change things that like dramatically, but I feel like it makes like Andy's character so much more likable. Like I did not really
Yeah.
give a
I feel like
shit
that was
about Andy.
it's kind of similar to what is it, like Promising Young Woman?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, never mind.
But sure, let's do A Promising Young Woman. But like it would give like Andy motivation. It would give more to her character, and it would just make her like more likable, because I feel like I didn't
But then
like
why would Becca
Andy.
kill her?
Well, we didn't get to that part yet.
Oh.
We hadn't gotten to that part in the show when that change was proposed. But I really like that idea. So obviously the ending would have to change as well. Um, but Andy could like kind of embed herself as a spy into the drug dealing, ring of small town rural England, and find out who is selling like the Rohypnol, the date rape drug, and like I guess prosecute from the top down. It makes more sense to go after the person that committed the sexual assault and then work our way up to the person that's
Mm.
continuing to sell that person Rohypnol. But yeah, I think that would give more motivation. And then I would just keep the dad as the killer. Like I feel like we
Mm.
did not have to do split killer things. Like it's almost like it kind of made the dad more sympathetic, because it was like, well, he didn't even kill the dog. So it's like,
Mm.
he did have that woman kidnapped and held
And they really
hostage.
don't pay teachers enough.
They don't pay, it made him a little too sympathetic for my
Mm.
liking. So it's like, he didn't even kill the dog. Like, let's let him out on like a warning or something. And it's like,
Mm.
just keep him away from like blonde teenagers and he'll be fine. So yeah, I think we just keep the dad as the original killer. make Andy a much more likable and sympathetic character, make her death like more meaningful. So I think that's a potential remake. And then of course an easy remake here, speaking of the dog, is that we full on go John Wick mode, and Pip sees Barney, if that's his name, laying dead on the road there. And I just want her to go completely out of character, just start slicing and dicing people, like no
Mm,
questions asked, there to find the murderer. It will make her relationship with Kara probably much more strained, because she will be like shooting and killing her dad on sight, because she
mm.
assumes that he's the killer. Then she'll feel a little bit guilty about it when she realizes that he didn't kill her dog. But yeah, I just want her to start murdering everyone in sight until Barney's death is avenged. Um, she seems like she'd be good at some like acrobatic tricks. She seems like petite. Throw her in some like gymnastics uniform, and I feel like she could go full
Harley
ninja mode.
Quinn, yeah.
Yeah, she could do it. I would like to see her mentally break and become much less stable, but much more interesting, honestly. So yeah, those were my remakes. What about you, Marriya?
Well, I had something similar where it's, a good girl's guide to murder. I feel like it's like kind of, I don't know. It feels like she should be doing the murders, you know? Like
It's not very instructive.
like a good girl's guide to like solving crime or whatever would be what it is. A good girl's guide to murder is like because it's like, how to get away with murder.
Mhm.
It's like, I don't know. I just feel like she should have done the murders. Or like it should have been, something where it's like a little bit messy or something and she accidentally kills someone in the end or something and now she's going to have to like cover up or use what she learned or whatever. I don't know. I just feel like she should have killed more people. More and right now she's at zero, unfortunately. Because I also think that could have been interesting of like, you know, serial killer, good girl kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then he's actually taking everyone out. I
Do you
also
think that
think,
like someone read her good girl's guide to murder book, and they were like false advertising,
mm,
like 0 out of 5 stars? The book
because it's
talk
not
girlies.
really.
It's not. Yeah, that's false advertising. You're right. It should be a good girl's guide to solving murder. But
Hmm.
again, I feel like she's not like qualified. Like she did solve the murder, but I feel like her recommendations.
What if it's like she's actually been a murderer this whole time? And then it comes out when she writes the EQP or EQB or whatever it is. EPQ? EP
EPQ, I think.
and yeah, what it's definitely those letters, but maybe in a different order. Um, but it comes out that she's like, "Oh, I've always wanted to go to Cambridge because there's more people there for me to murder." Um, That's why I've always loved Gothic literature. A
Mm-hmm.
lot of death there.
A lot of death.
Um,
She
and
takes
then,
in, wait, what if it's like she takes inspiration from the novel that she's reading at the time,
that's
and
good.
then murders someone in the way that it like happens in the novel?
See,
I'm
there we
I'm not
go.
quite sure what Gothic literature entails, but
It's Gothic, you know?
like Edgar Allan Poe is coming to mind. So it's like, oh, what if she like buries someone's heart in like the the walls of her
It's like
house.
Frankenstein, Dracula, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so what if she dismembers a body and then
Hmm. Like
sews
girl's
it
kind of
together?
off, and I feel like we could have leaned into that.
I know. She doesn't seem like someone that likes gothic literature. She
I
seems like
know.
someone that reads like My Little Pony fan fiction or something. Like
That's so mean.
she's just giving 11 years old, like newly 11. I just don't understand.
And then I was also thinking about, Good Girl's Guide to Murder. Who else has a really good guide? And so I thought Ned's Declassified Guide to Murder. And it's Coconut Head has died.
Oh no.
Coconut Head is no more. They just left the hair. Um, and he has to solve the thing for his like end of year capstone project. Him and Mose and whoever the other person is. I don't really remember. Because I feel like, if it's going to be a guide, maybe we should do, they always broke up those episodes by like tips and stuff like that. I didn't learn anything from this. I didn't learn.
Mm-mm. I remember
I learned
watching.
not to be friends with Pip because she'll probably leave me at a party and be weird to my sister.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want her around like your family. Like she'll charge your dad for
Yeah.
murder and ruin your sister's life. Yeah, I don't remember much of Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. I did definitely watch it. But like the thing is, like now they like have a podcast together and they talk about how
I
like
know. Why
all
do
of them
people
were
have
just
podcasts?
fucking. Why do we have a podcast? We can't
No,
even talk
no,
about
no.
we can't even talk about how we were all banging on the set of our like Nickelodeon show. But yeah, any more remakes or is that it?
That was all I had.
Alrighty, well, let's hop into what we have been watching lately. Um, I have watched a few more movies uh than I did the last time we did this, but I saw the new M. Night Shyamalan film Trap, which I feel like we should still do like a full podcast on this if Marriya is able to see this movie in theaters sometime in the next few weeks, or when it comes out on streaming. So I like really feel like we should do a deep dive into it. So I'll reserve most of my criticisms. But boy, oh boy, was this a stinker. And I'm so confused because like I am a big M. Night Shyamalan like stan. And all of the reviews that I was reading were like positive, but like
Oh, I
positive.
saw all really bad ones, so I was
Oh,
really
okay.
excited for you.
Okay, so maybe my Letterboxd feed just like isn't
Just all of the
aligning.
other podcasts that we follow and are friends with, they all hated it.
Okay, I feel much more like secure then, in my opinion, because I genuinely was like, oh my God, I was like, everyone loved this. I have to like rewatch it. But they were loving it in like an ironic sense, basically saying that like all of M. Night's films are horrible, which I get. Sometimes like it's his style, especially like his dialogue is not like amazing, but I do genuinely believe that he has movies that are like by objective standards are good. Like both from like audience rating and just like as films they are like good. They're not Oscar worthy but like they're still entertaining and interesting. This one was like the just like the ultimate nepo baby movie, because it was all essentially like his daughter is a singer and he was like, baby, I'm gonna make you a concert movie, like just like Taylor Swift. Like his daughter was probably like, why does Taylor Swift get a concert movie? And he was like, just hold your horses, sweetie, like I got one for you. And essentially just like kind of came up with a loosely interesting idea surrounding the concert movie. And listen, her songs were fine, her songs were good. What she was not good as was becoming one of the main characters and actors in the last like 30% of the movie because she was a horrific actor. Horrible. The acting was so bad and it just took me out of it so much. But again, we should do a full review on this. It was just so bad in so many ways. Primarily like the acting was horrible and it wasn't good in any sort of ironic or campy sense. Like it just missed the mark on every single part for me. Josh Harnett was good. He did like as good of a job
Hartnett?
as he
I
could.
don't
I don't know. He did as good
know.
a job as he could. Everyone else was pretty bad. So that was just like so disappointing. I feel like M. Night does have some flops though, so I'm not like super shocked, but I feel like he had like a good stretch there. The last like 5 years, I really liked his new releases. So really bad. And then I saw Pearl, 2022 with Mia Goth. I think it's my first Mia Goth film that have seen. I think it's like chronologically the first movie in the X series that she did, but I think it was like the second to be released. So I'll have to see if I want to go now chronologically and watch the others. It was good. Man, Mia Goth has such an interesting like way of speaking and an interesting accent. But it like draws you in. Like I'm like it's kind of endearing. I'm like, oh, I kind of like this weird little girl. But it was an interesting movie. It wasn't like spectacular, but I did think it was good. And there were some creepy moments in there. Then I did a rewatch with my parents of the trial of the Chicago Seven. It was like a 2020 COVID release that had a hard time being like made, I think, because of the pandemic or being released at the very least. So I don't think it got like a lot of hype or coverage around the time. But I love that movie.
I really liked it.
I love
That's my favorite, one of my favorites. Yeah.
yeah, I love like
I
Eric.
love the part where they start listing.
Mm-hmm.
I like
Yeah,
that part.
I love Aaron Sorkin court
Hmm.
drama, court procedurals. He does a few Good Men too. I think
I do think Aaron Sorkin should stick to movies and not political criticism.
oh, does he have weird political criticisms?
He had this whole article where he was like, if I was writing the presidential election, I would make Mitt Romney the Democratic candidate.
Hmm. Okay,
Which like
interesting.
maybe you should stay in your lane, babe. I know we're surviving till 25, but this isn't what we mean.
Yeah.
Stay alive till
Well,
25, but
that aside, I think A Few Good Men is maybe my favorite of the two. I really like that movie as well. But Travel to Chicago 7, really enjoy it. God, there's a you probably really like it too from like an American history perspective. As someone who is like not an American history expert, has like very minimal public school like knowledge, hasn't really delved into it too much since high school. I had to like ask my parents who like my dad was like I think 16 years old living in Chicago at the time
hmm.
that this movie like took place. So it was interesting to ask the old folks their like lived experience of this history and trying to understand more of the like cultural context of each of these like main characters. But so good, like weaves together so much. I love Eddie Redmayne in this too. So really love that. And then the last one I saw was The Lincoln Lawyer, 2011 with Matthew McConaughey. When I was like reading up on it, everyone said that it was kind of like the McConaughey's like renaissance, the McConaissance of him like getting back into to film as more of like a serious, I guess, actor. And good like plot, horrible cinematography. They made like
Hmm.
a real big choice with the cinematography in this film. It's like I don't even know how to describe it. It's like kind of like shaky cam, like like office style single cam, but it would do like weird zooms in on like people in a crowd. Like it's kind of like you like hired someone off the street to film this movie and they did their best. It's like they didn't know who they were
That was
focusing
actually,
on.
it was M. Night Shyamalan's daughter at first wanted to be a cinematographer.
Yeah,
This
they
is
they gave her shot. I think she would have been about probably like 9 years old at the time, which shows. The camera was a little too heavy for her. So yeah, not my favorite. Maybe like it's just like highly stylized cinematography. Did not enjoy it. But did like the overall plot. I thought like McConaughey was really like doing the heavy lifting with the acting. Everyone else in this movie like seemed like they were reading off of like a teleprompter
Hmm.
with not a lot of emotion. So that was kind of shitty, but everything else was decent. So I think I gave it 3 stars. But that's all I've been watching. What about you, Marriya?
I watched a lot of the Olympics. I don't know if you've heard
Nice.
of that, but it is the worldwide exercise affair. I got
Rings a
really
bell.
into speed climbing.
Oh,
I really like that. I don't know. Trampolining, um, gymnastics, obviously swimming, diving, um, break dancing.
yes.
Yeah, I think I might know more about break dancing
Than the
than the
Australian.
Australian girl. But she put herself out there. And then I saw The Incredible Jessica James. My mom picked it out. It was fine. It's like this woman who's like a failed um playwright. and she's like just got out of a relationship and she's been like kind of like stalking her ex, and then she meets this guy who's like just got out of a marriage and he's also kind of like stalking his ex, and so then they stalk each other's ex and then try to
Mhm.
find love. It was fine. It was nothing super like memorable about it. Some really weird, she's also like a teacher to like children, teaching playwriting, and then in the end she takes a child to London, and it's I feel like that's not something you can do. Um,
Like she just
and
like grabs one.
I don't know. They're just suddenly on a plane, and I just feel like that's a weird thing to do. Um, and I watched School Spirits, which was a show with Peyton List, where she like it's like a teen kind of show where she suddenly wakes up and no one can see her and she's like dead, but she doesn't remember how she died. And so she's trying to figure out how she died. And she's like with all the other ghosts who died in this high school, which I don't know why there are so many, which is kind of alarming. Um, and
We
and
need
so she's
Pip
trying
at
to
that
figure
school.
what?
We need Pip in that
Yeah,
school.
exactly.
She'll have
Um,
so many projects.
So she's trying to figure out like why she died. And I don't know. I mean, obviously I don't think like teen shows are for me anymore. Um, but it's like no one in that show, like all the main love interests were not attractive. It was like they all like looked very greasy and didn't wash their hair. And so the only like love interest that was attractive is the dead boy ghost that she's like been somewhat seeing. So I'm like, girl, it's really not that bad that you're dead because this is really the best option for you. Um, but so it was interesting. I like kind of spoiled it for myself. So it wasn't like something where I was super into getting into the next one. So it was kind of like a little bit of a slog to get through. But the guy who plays the best love interest is named Milo Manheim, who is the son of actress Cameron Manheim, um, who was in like The Practice, The Ghost Whisperer, and Person of Interest. So she's like an actress. And yeah, he seems cool. They're filming season two, so best of luck to them. And then I went from there to Dead Boy Detectives. I really had like a theme. Um, and Dead Boy Detectives is like it's two dead boys that are detectives.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And so basically they like investigate murders or so either like hauntings that shouldn't be happening or like ghosts will come to them and they're like, "Oh, I'm worried about what happened to my family and I can't move on until I know," or like I need to know who murdered me before I can move on and stuff like that, or like they do like supernatural things, so like people who are um like possessed by sprites or like witches and other kind of stuff. It very much is like kind of like the kind of, I don't know, I guess like teen version of like Good Omens, where it's
Mhm.
like that kind of like quirky, absurdist kind of thing, but also like dealing with like, sexuality and stuff like that. So I thought it was good. I thought it was fun. Um, Very British again. So if you need a break from the British, I wouldn't jump right in. But I thought it was a pretty like easy casual watch. It wasn't again one that I was really like kind of jumping in to finish. Um, but I think there's a lot of like parallel with Supernatural.
Mhm.
And it was originally supposed to be in the same world as DC Comics and Doom Patrol because I remember watching a Doom Patrol. Doom Patrol had Brendan Fraser, so that's why I watched Doom Patrol. Um, but then they like realized that they couldn't fit the Dead Boy Detectives in their world, or like it wouldn't make sense. So then they put it in the Sandman world, which I haven't seen. Um, but I did meet that man at one point at a stage door thing. So we're best friends. Um, the Dead Boy Detectives does have Ruth Connell, who was in Supernatural, and didn't realize that she is in a relationship with Rob Benedict, who plays Chuck, and they have a daughter together. So that's, if you know who that is, that's huge. So
Mm-mm.
freak out. But it also has Kaylee Cuoco's sister Brianna, which was interesting. I don't think I've really seen her in a lot of things. But yeah, that's what I've been mostly watching. Right now, I'm watching Lego Batman. I'm in the middle of Lego Batman.
Well,
So
we'll
stay
let you get
tuned.
back to that.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, where can they find you and the pod?
You can find me at Marriya Schwarz on all social media and the podcast at Remake Hot Take on all social media, including Facebook. No one has followed us there at all, but I continue posting in case someone does.
In case your grandma wants to follow us,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
we will keep the Facebook lines of communication open.
Mm-hmm. Maybe I should
All
do
right.
LinkedIn next.
Well, tell us in the comments what murder you want to solve. Let us know how you're doing with it.
What would you pick for your end of year project?
What murder would I pick? Well, there's like a famous serial killer that operated like out of our college, like
Mm-hmm. The
the
highway
like
something,
yeah,
College
the
Parkway or something.
the Williamsburg Colonial Parkway
Mm-hmm.
murders, which I think they actually like kind of got a break in the case not too long ago. I watched or I listened to a podcast called True Crime Garage. Shout out to True Crime Garage, love them. And I think they're like an Ohio-based podcast, which is how I got recommended them. But yeah, the Colonial
Are
Parkway
they in your
murders.
garage?
I don't own a garage, so
Okay.
they're not there.
So
They
that's
don't.
case solved.
Yeah, case closed. I am not the True Crime Garage two male podcast host. But yeah, maybe that one. I think there is speculation about who it could be, and like I said, I think there was a recent break in the case that solved, I think like two of the murders. And it was someone that I think like was worked on like a boat that like went along the river like alongside the Colonial Parkway. But I think there are still like open to interpretation a couple more of the murders that happened at that time. So that's the murder that I would try to solve. Everyone else comment down below if
I
you
don't
have
know. I don't
any
know. I
local
mean, I
legend.
guess JFK. JFK just to
Mm,
double check our work.
yeah, let's just double check. We got our
hmm
ducks in a row here.
hmm hmm
Love it. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.